Welcome to the Deep Dive, your shortcut to being well-informed. Today we're embarking on a truly fascinating journey. A deep dive into the surprising, almost unbelievable connections between high-stakes gambling, the shadowy world of organized crime, and the very foundations of modern finance and information theory. You might think these subjects exist in completely separate universes, but as we peel back the layers, you'll discover they're deeply, inextricably linked. Our sources for this deep dive are incredibly rich. They take us from the gritty turn-of-the-century streets and the nascent wire services that fueled illegal betting, all the way to the glitzy, high-stakes world of Las Vegas casinos, and ultimately into the brilliant minds of some of the greatest scientific thinkers of the 20th century who are quietly revolutionizing how we understand information itself.
Indeed, we're tracing a direct line, really, from a corrupt telegraph operator, believe it or not, right through to Nobel Prize-winning economists. Our mission today is to unpack how the relentless drive for an edge, that crucial informational or mathematical advantage, whether it's in a rigged horse race or on the sophisticated floors of Wall Street, paradoxically led to some of the most profound mathematical insights of our time. You'll discover how these seemingly disparate worlds are actually, deeply intertwined by the universal principles of probability and the very nature of information.
Okay, so let's pull back the layers on this. There's some truly unexpected connections here that might just reframe how you see the world of finance and maybe even beyond. Our story begins, perhaps unexpectedly, in the early 1900s. We're far from any gleaming towers of finance or scientific laboratories here. We find ourselves in Cincinnati with a man named John Payne. He's a seemingly ordinary Western Union telegraph operator, except for, one crucial detail. He was corrupt. Now, Western Union at the time had taken a very public and strict moral stand against gambling. They outright banned the transmission of horse race results over its wires. But Payne, ever the opportunist, saw not a ban, but a colossal void, a massive unmet demand for speed. He quickly quit his job and with a bold entrepreneurial spirit started his own venture, the Payne Telegraph Service of Cincinnati. Its sole purpose, its entire business model, was basically reporting racetrack results to eager bookies.
And this wasn't just some niche market. It was a desperate need for the bookmaking industry. What's absolutely crucial to grasp here is something called the time delay problem that bookies, universally faced. Before Payne's ingenious solution, news of horse race winners could take precious minutes, sometimes even longer, to reach bookmakers in pool halls far from the track. This seemingly small delay created an enormous vulnerability, a gaping hole in their business model. I mean, imagine it. A customer, having just heard the results on the street, could rush into a pool hall and place a bet on a horse that had already won.
Right. Essentially robbing the bookie blind.
Exactly. For bookmakers, those minutes of delay literally meant the difference between fortune and ruin. It was an existential threat to their very livelihood, and they were constantly searching for a way to close that information gap.
It's almost impossible for us, living in an age of, instant sports updates delivered right to our pockets, to truly imagine just how valuable this real-time information was back then. Those mere minutes of delay could swing millions of dollars. Payne's solution to this critical problem was remarkably low-tech, yet absolutely ingenious. A testament to necessity being the mother of invention, really. He positioned an employee at the racetrack who would use a simple hand mirror to flash a coded signal, maybe a specific pattern of light, indicating the winner to another employee stationed in a nearby tall building. That second employee, upon receiving the coded flash, would then immediately telegraph the results over specially leased wires directly to pool halls and gambling dens.
And this gave Payne's bookie clients the ultimate and illicit advantage. They knew the winner before their customers did. Armed with this privileged information, they could instantly refuse bets on winning horses that customers might try to place, and conversely, they could happily accept large bets on losing horses, the outcome of which was still unknown to the unsuspecting bettor.
It was pure information asymmetry, wasn't it? Weaponized for illicit profit and control.
Absolutely. And this wasn't merely a local scam. It was a rapidly burgeoning enterprise. Payne's service, built on this foundational informational edge, quickly amassed a fortune, proving just how lucrative controlling information could be. It represented a sort of twisted, illicit version of the American dream, identifying a crucial societal need and inventing a highly valuable product to meet it. The service expanded rapidly, first to Saratoga, then fanning out across the entire Midwest as demand just exploded. Interestingly, local crackdowns on gambling, like Chicago Mayor Carter Harrison II banning betting at traps, didn't kill the business. They actually had the perverse effect of boosting illegal bookmaking and, by extension, Payne's wire service.
Really? How so?
Well, track attendance might have plummeted, but the underground market for betting flourished, making Payne's real-time information even more indispensable and profitable.
Wow. Okay, so the narrative takes another fascinating turn when John Payne, having built his illicit empire, decides to sell out. He sells to a man named Tennis. Tennis later retired peacefully and, in a strange twist of fate, actually left his considerable fortune to a summer camp for wayward boys. Camp Honor, I believe it was called.
Right. After Tennis, the baton passed to one of the most powerful figures in the industry, Moe Annenberg. As the influential publisher of the Racing Form, Annenberg became the largest stockholder of the General News Bureau, entrusting its day-to-day operations to James Reagan. Annenberg was notoriously unapologetic about his business. He publicly questioned the moral crusades against gambling, famously asking, if people wager at a racetrack, why should they be deprived of the right to do so away from a track? How many people can take time off from their jobs to go to a track?
He just saw it as providing a service, basically.
Exactly, meeting a widespread demand that already existed.
And here's where it truly gets surprising, revealing the unexpected bedfellows in this story. The meteoric growth of Annenberg's General News Bureau shockingly paralleled that of the American Telephone and Telegraph Company, AT&T. Now, AT&T at the time was a national icon. It had a hard-won legal monopoly on telephone services across the country and was widely regarded as a widows and orphans stock, a safe, reliable, fundamentally moral investment. Yet by the mid-1930s, this pillar of American enterprise was working hand in hand in a deeply lucrative partnership with an industry many consider morally bankrupt and certainly illegal.
Which immediately raises a very important question. How could AT&T possibly justify such a blatant contradiction between its pristine public image and its profitable private dealings? Well, their own in-house legal opinion from as early as 1924, which has since been declassified, openly stated that they couldn't willfully blind themselves to the undeniable fact that the vast majority of their racing wire customers were, in fact, bookmakers. Yet they not only continued this highly lucrative business, but actively facilitated its expansion.
So how did they square that circle legally?
The answer lay in a cleverly worded escape clause embedded deep within their contracts. This clause allowed AT&T to cancel service if authorities officially judged the customer's business to be illegal. This provided AT&T with a thin veneer of plausible deniability, allowing them to officially claim ignorance or moral neutrality while continuing to profit handsomely from the immense demand for rapid information.
Incredible. Just how big was this business for AT&T?
To give you a sense of the scale, by the mid-1930s, Moe Annenberg was AT&T's fifth largest customer in the entire country. He was leasing vast networks of both telegraph and voice lines for live track commentary, generating millions in revenue for the telephone giant.
Wow.
It was a clear example of how economic incentives can sometimes, overshadow official corporate ethics.
It's incredible to think that this seemingly simple wire service, born from a need for speed in illegal gambling, became such a massive financial engine and eventually a flashpoint for intense legal and criminal battles. It truly paved the way for mob involvement on a scale that would reshape organized crime in America.
Absolutely. As Annenberg and Reagan expanded their wire service empire, their strategy was simple, brutal, and utterly without mercy. They would either buy up smaller, competing wire services or systematically run them out of business through sheer economic force and, frankly, intimidation. This wasn't a gentlemanly competition. It was a bare-knuckle fight for control of a multi-million-dollar industry.
And you have a prime example of this brutal competition involving a notorious bootlegger named Irving Wexler, right? He owned the Greater New York News Service. Wexler, surprisingly, had the audacity, the sheer guts, to stand up to Annenberg and Reagan. What ensued was a vicious price war that quickly escalated beyond mere economics. Wexler, not one to back down, sent his thugs to vandalize Annenberg's New York headquarters, smashing equipment and sending a clear message of physical threat.
But Annenberg, ever the strategist, had an even more brutal and frankly brilliant retaliation up his sleeve. He knew that Wexler was illegally tapping into his leased lines to get race results, basically stealing his product.
Undermining his whole business.
Precisely. So Annenberg deliberately delayed the race results on these compromised, tapped lines. While Wexler's bookies were receiving outdated, useless information, Annenberg had his own trusted men, armed with the real-time, accurate results, place massive bets on winning horses with Wexler's unsuspecting bookies.
Ouch. That must have hurt.
It caused crippling, instantaneous losses for Wexler's operations, financially suffocating him until he had no choice but to fold. It was a textbook, brutal, and brilliant example of information asymmetry in action, weaponized for illicit profit and market dominance.
And these disputes weren't just business tactics. They quickly involved the entrenched power of the mob.
Right. Consider Chicago mobster John Lynch. He actually took Annenberg to court over shares in General News Bureau after Annenberg's aggressive takeover of the business. Annenberg's attorney, a shrewd legal mind named Weymouth Kirkland, pulled a truly audacious legal maneuver. He argued that because the wire service was inherently illegal, the court had no legitimate jurisdiction to mediate disputes over its ownership or profits.
Seriously, how did he justify that?
He even cited a truly obscure 1725 English precedent from the aptly named Highwayman's case, which established that courts would refuse to divide highwaymen's loot because it was stolen property, and therefore the court shouldn't be involved in its distribution.
And the court bought it.
Incredibly, yes. The court accepted this defense, essentially washing its hands of the dispute due to the illegal nature of the underlying business. This highlighted the peculiar legal challenges of operating in the criminal underworld, even when seeking justice within it.
But despite this clever legal evasion, Annenberg's troubles with the law were far from over. In 1939, he faced much more serious tax evasion charges from the federal government. To appear reformed and maybe avoid a longer sentence, he made what seemed like an unthinkable decision. He publicly walked away from the wire service business.
But the vacuum didn't last long. The illicit service was quickly reconstituted as Continental Press Service, with James Reagan, Annenberg's former right-hand man, still at the helm. The Chicago mob, seeing an opportunity in the leadership void, again tried to take over the lucrative operation.
But Reagan fought back.
He did. Reagan, however, had foresight and courage. He had prepared sworn affidavits implicating notorious mob boss Frank Nitti in Annenberg's attempted murder, threatening to send them directly to the FBI if anything happened to him. This was a bold move, playing the legal system against the criminal underworld.
Bold, but dangerous. How did that end for him?
Tragically, Reagan's defiance met a violent and gruesome end. On June 24, 1946, he was shot at a busy Chicago intersection. He spent 6 agonizing weeks under police guard in a hospital, a seemingly secure environment, yet in a chilling turn of events, he was reportedly poisoned with mercury. Either administered subtly in his Coca-Colas or, even more chillingly, via his catheter. The police guards were powerless to stop it.
Wow, just like that.
With Reagan dead, the mob finally and brutally seized complete control of Continental Press.
And the mob didn't stop there. They quickly recognized the synergy of merging Continental Press with Transamerican, another major wire service controlled by the infamous Ben Siegel, Bugsy Siegel, while he was building the Flamingo in Vegas.
The very same. This merger created an even more powerful monopolistic entity, essentially controlling the flow of real-time gambling information across the country. Los Angeles bookies, for instance, were then compelled to subscribe to both services if they wanted to stay in business. However, Siegel, in his hubris, made a fatal mistake. He brazenly declared Transamerican his own personal property, not the combinations, the larger mob syndicates.
Why would he do that?
He was hoping to siphon off its immense profits to cover the Flamingo's massive and escalating construction debts, which were bleeding him dry. This blatant act of disloyalty and personal greed ultimately led to his assassination in 1947, a violent and very public reminder of the mob's brutal enforcement of their own unforgiving rules.
And of course, the mob promptly took over his wire service as well, consolidating their power even further.
Right. What's absolutely fascinating here is how the murder of such a high-profile, glamorous figure like Siegel in a wealthy California suburb suddenly drew unprecedented public and governmental attention to the inner workings of organized crime. It particularly shone a harsh spotlight on the wire service, which had previously operated largely in the shadows, almost unnoticed by the wider public.
And this new scrutiny caught the attention of Tennessee Senator Estes Kefauver.
Exactly. Kefauver, as a result, branded Continental Press public enemy number 1, publicly declaring it the financial engine, the literal bankroll for illegal gambling and a host of other criminal activities across the nation.
Which led to the famous Kefauver committee hearings. Those were televised, right? A huge deal at the time.
A national sensation, running from 1950 to 1951. For the first time, millions of Americans watched as major crime figures from across the nation were subpoenaed to testify before Congress. The dramatic nature of the hearings, with bright lights and stern questions, was gripping. Many mobsters either conveniently went on vacation to avoid subpoenas or, when cornered, invoked the Fifth Amendment, refusing to answer questions to avoid self-incrimination.
So who actually testified?
Well, the more interesting and often telling testimony frequently came from corrupt cops and prosecutors. They, perhaps less practiced in evasion, offered glimpses into the pervasive corruption. We heard about a Chicago police captain who openly admitted amassing a fortune from sports betting while simultaneously allowing bookie joints to operate under his nose. Or, even more bizarrely, Louisiana police officers attempting to justify not closing illegal casinos by claiming they provided employment for underprivileged people.
Unbelievable. Painting a picture of a system deeply compromised.
Deeply compromised. One of the most memorable moments came from New York mobster Frank Costello's testimony in March 1951. When asked directly by a senator how he thought gambling could be curbed, Costello quipped, "Senator, if you want to cut out gambling, there's just two things you need to do. Burn the stables and shoot the horses."
Darkly funny, in a way. And he didn't want his face shown, right? The hand ballet.
Exactly. He agreed to testify only if his face wasn't televised, leading to the surreal, now iconic hand ballet on TV, where the cameras focused entirely on his nervously twitching, carefully manicured hands as he answered questions. A bizarre yet compelling visual for millions watching.
Then there was Longy's Willman, tried to play the legitimate businessman.
He did. A New Jersey gangster who attempted to present himself as legitimate, politely requesting photographers stop using flashbulbs. He even got a laugh from the committee with his deadpan delivery. "I feel like I'm getting shot."
Yeah.
The senator's overarching goal was to establish and prove the existence of an interconnected national criminal network, a powerful mafia. But the mobsters, despite obvious ties, largely denied knowing each other. Zwillman, for instance, admitted knowing Costello only slightly.
Such incredulity, I imagine.
To say the least. Which leads us to the most candid and ultimately problematic witness for the mob. Willie Moretti, Zwillman's short, loud, diamond stick pin-wearing partner. Moretti, sadly, suffered from advanced syphilis, which was severely deteriorating his mental state. This made him a dangerous, unpredictable witness.
How so?
Unlike his cautious associates, Moretti freely admitted knowing everyone, including Frank Costello and every other big-name mob figure. He called them well-charactered men he'd simply met at racetracks. His frankness, combined with his deteriorating mental state, made him a significant liability, exposing the very connections the others tried so hard to deny.
So ultimately, the pressure worked. The hearings had an impact.
Ultimately, yes. The relentless legal and public pressure from the Kefauver Committee hearings worked. The national outcry, fueled by the televised spectacle, pushed Congress to pass landmark legislation directly against the interstate transmission of gambling results. And surprisingly, despite its decades of power and influence, its deep financial ties, John Payne's ingenious illicit invention, the wire service, effectively died. It was a swift and decisive end.
Wow, after 50 years.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it suggests something profound. Even the most powerful and entrenched criminal enterprises are vulnerable to determine legal and legislative action, especially when public opinion mobilizes against them. But perhaps even more importantly, they are vulnerable when their core business model becomes technologically obsolescent. With the dawn of widespread television ownership, the immediate information advantage the wire service provided became less unique, less valuable. News could travel instantly, legally, over the airwaves.
So it was outmaneuvered not just by the law, but by technology itself.
Exactly. After 50 incredibly profitable years, John Payne's game-changing idea came to an abrupt end.
But this isn't the end of the story of Fortune's formula. It's merely a pivot. While the mob's illicit wire services were being dismantled, just 12 miles southwest of Zwillman's mob-bought mansion in West Orange, New Jersey, something entirely new was brewing. It was brewing in the hallowed academic halls of Bell Labs, a place where the abstract world of mathematics was about to collide with the very real and potentially lucrative problem of finding an edge in a completely different kind of game, information itself.
Right. Here we step into the world of Claude Shannon, a truly prodigious scientist who, as described by Cornell's Toby Berger, single-handedly invented an important new science, information theory. This wasn't just some niche academic pursuit. It's the fundamental science that underpins virtually everything in our digital world computers, the internet, All digital media from your smartphone to satellite communication. Berger emphasized the sheer brilliance of it, noting it's one of the few times in history where somebody founded the field, asked all the right questions, and proved most of them and answered them all at once. It was a complete paradigm shift.
Defining information not by meaning, but by unpredictability. That's the key.
That's the core insight.
Shannon himself was known for his almost whimsical yet profound eccentric genius, riding a unicycle down the halls of Bell Labs.
Famously. And not just riding it, he actually devised a complex mathematical theory for it, built ever tinier versions, and even juggled while riding.
That wasn't just quirkiness. It spoke to his profound ability to dissect complex systems and find elegant solutions.
Absolutely. As a child in Michigan, he built a telegraph set using barbed wire fences to connect to a friend's house half a mile away, demonstrating a lifelong ability to find clean and elegant solutions. He even worked briefly as a Western Union messenger boy.
Maybe picking up some early insights into the value of speed, like pain, but obviously heading in a very different direction.
A very different trajectory, yes. His professional career took a significant foundational turn during his time at MIT. His initial job was maintaining Vannevar Bush's differential analyzer, this huge, room-sized mechanical computer. Shannon's daily task involved tedious grunt work, physically assembling mechanical linkages for each new problem. But this hands-on experience led to his profound aha moment. He realized with stunning clarity that electrical circuits could compute far more efficiently and elegantly.
And his master's thesis laid this out, the idea of using electrical circuits for logic.
Exactly. His breakthrough was proving that an electronic digital computer could compute anything by simply encoding fundamental logical ideas, true, false, and or not, if into electrical circuits. This was monumental, the absolute bedrock of all modern computing, showing how pure logic could be manifested in hardware.
Setting the stage for the digital revolution. After this incredible achievement, Shannon experienced a period of emotional crisis, which led him to Bell Labs.
Right. He accepted a highly sought-after job offer there, and it was there that he embarked on a secret collaboration that truly stands out. Let's really dive into this Project X, a covert partnership with none other than the legendary Alan Turing himself.
Wow. What was Project X?
This project, shrouded in secrecy and declassified only in 1976, was called Sigsaly, a deliberately random string of letters designed to confuse German intelligence during World War II. Sigsaly was, simply put, the first digitally scrambled wireless phone. Not portable, mind you, a massive, room-sized, 55-ton computer, complete with its own soundproof isolation booth and dedicated air conditioning.
And its purpose? Secure communication for the Allies.
Utterly vital to ensure uncrackable, secure communication between Allied leaders like Roosevelt and Churchill during the height of the war. It employed an incredibly secure cryptographic system, the one-time pad, where a truly random key is used only once for scrambling and decoding. For Sigsaly, this key was physically delivered by trusted couriers as unique vinyl LP records of random white noise.
Okay, so how does this connect to information theory?
Shannon, through his deep involvement with Sigsaly, had a profound realization. He saw that a secrecy system is almost identical with a noisy communication system. He recognized the challenges of hiding a message were mathematically analogous to sending a clear message through static.
So cryptography and communication theory were linked.
Exactly. This stunning insight became the very birthplace of core information theory concepts.
It's astonishing to think that the ideas underpinning our entire digital world emerged from secure wartime communication. In 1943, Shannon actually met Turing, right? In the Bell Labs cafeteria.
They spent hours discussing Shannon's burgeoning work on measuring information. It was in these conversations that Shannon articulated the concept of measuring information using a unit he called the bit, a name he credited to another brilliant Bell Labs mathematician, John Ticky.
This whole notion of quantifying information, connecting it to noise and secrecy, it completely redefined how we think about communication, computation, even knowledge. And it led to some very unexpected places, like finance.
And Shannon's most radical, perhaps counterintuitive insight was that meaning is irrelevant to information theory. This challenges our everyday understanding. If meaning is excluded, then what is information? He concluded it's simply the statistical unpredictability of the symbol stream. Think of those old phone company ads illustrating garbled messages. 200 oxen becomes 200 dachshunds. Shampoo because shamu.
Right. The humor comes from our subconscious use of probability. We expect certain words.
Exactly. Information, for Shannon, was the reduction of that uncertainty, the element of surprise. The more unpredictable, the more information it carries.
And here's the truly revolutionary part of Shannon's work, something engineers thought was impossible. He mathematically proved it's possible to encode a message so noise errors can be made arbitrarily small without using additional bandwidth. That defied common sense at the time, didn't it? The idea was always more noise needs more bandwidth.
Completely. Shannon showed you could overcome noise through clever encoding. Robert Fano, a respected peer, expressed the profound amazement, saying, "To make the chance of error as small as you wish. Nobody had ever thought of that. It was a game changer."
And this abstract theory has direct connections to our modern digital life.
Absolutely. For example, Sputnik and NASA's subsequent critical need for incredibly efficient satellite communication spurred the practical application of Shannon's theories. This directly led to the development of integrated circuits, the building blocks of all modern electronics. As one journalist vividly put it, "No Shannon, no Napster." His work demonstrated data could be compressed, transmitted, and reconstructed without degradation, even over noisy channels, making everything from HD streaming to secure online transactions possible.
A testament to how pure theoretical science can have massive real-world impact. But Shannon's insights weren't limited to theory. Another brilliant mind at Bell Labs, John Larry Kelly Jr., would soon apply these ideas to a very concrete problem.
Kelly, a physicist from Texas, worked on speech synthesis, things like the vocoder. He was steeped in the practical applications of information theory. His inspiration for developing a mathematical gambling system reportedly stemmed from news reports and rumors swirling around scams related to TV quiz shows like the $64,000 Question, where insiders often had advanced knowledge.
He saw that as a clear informational edge.
Exactly, ripe for exploitation. Kelly then ingeniously applied Shannon's mathematical framework, originally for noisy communication channels, to model the behavior of what he termed a greedy though prudent bettor. The core principle he uncovered was truly profound. It's theoretically possible for a bettor with a true edge-superior information to compound their wealth at a maximum possible rate with virtually no risk of ruin.
The holy grail. Having your cake and eating it too.
Seemingly impossible in the world of gambling.
Kelly then analyzed pari-mutuel betting at racetracks, where the bettors set the odds right.
Correct. Unlike sports betting with a bookie, the pool sets the odds and the track takes a cut. He countered the common misconception that if you had inside tips, you should bet on every horse with a tip. His groundbreaking Kelly formula, derived from Shannon's work, was elegantly simple. Edge divided by the odds, expressed as a decimal.
So the odds reflect the market's belief, which could be wrong.
Right. And the edge comes from privileged, accurate inside tips. Let's take an example. Secretariat is at 5-to-1 odds. Market implies 1 in 6 chance. But your insider tip says it's really a 1 in 3 chance. The Kelly formula tells you precisely what proportion of your bankroll to bet.
To maximize long-term growth and minimize ruin. A disciplined approach.
Very disciplined. Kelly believed gambling and investment differed only by a minus sign. Favorable bets are investments, unfavorable ones are gambling. Interestingly, when Kelly prepared his article, AT&T executives were concerned about his original title, Information Theory and Gambling. They feared association with illegal bookies, especially given their own history.
The history kept overexposed.
Exactly. So Kelly, pragmatically, changed the title to the much more academic, A New Interpretation of Information Rate. Shannon himself refereed the paper. It highlights the sensitivity around gambling in corporate America.
And Kelly's chosen metaphor, a racetrack wire service, was highly topical then, connecting right back to the mob stuff.
Probably more deeply than he even realized at the time.
It's incredible how these worlds keep intersecting, which brings us back to the real-world underworld and a character we've met, Manny Kimmel, the gambler and bookie.
Kimmel was a fascinating figure. According to his associate Eddie Hand, he was a bookie for everything and great at talking people into betting. His territory spanned the East Coast tracks to Vegas's El Rancho Hotel, but Kimmel also had a darker side. He was known to have straightened-out jockeys fixed races, a direct, brutal application of control for an edge.
Not just math, but manipulation.
Right. And he wasn't just about manipulation. He understood mathematical edges, too. He knew card counting, learned from his buddy Joe Bernstein. Bernstein famously figured out counting after noticing most of a deck dealt with no aces. Massive advantage.
Kimmel really lived the pursuit of the edge however he could get it.
Always looking for that advantage.
So you now have this mathematical edge, this understanding of probability. But the burning question remains, how do you actually win consistently without going broke? This is where gambler's ruin comes in and where the Kelly criterion really shines.
Gambler's ruin. It's the disheartening fact that most gamblers, even with fair odds or a slight edge, eventually go broke. Why? Because the house usually has significantly more money. Over time, random fluctuations will eventually deplete a finite bankroll.
Like a random walk on a chart that eventually hits zero.
Exactly. The swings get wider over time. The simplest solution is often stated as, don't gamble with all your money, put half in the safe. But that doesn't solve the problem for the money you were gambling with.
And common betting systems like martingale, doubling up after losses.
They actually accelerate ruin. While promising to recover losses, the amount needed quickly becomes astronomical, exceeding player or casino limits, which raises a critical question. How do you manage money to avoid this?
And that's where Kelly leverages the law of large numbers.
In a truly revolutionary way. The Kelly system isn't just about the edge. It's profoundly about money management. It ensures the bettor stays in the game long enough for that edge to work, maximizing the geometric mean of outcomes.
The geometric mean.
Yeah.
That's about the actual compounding rate over time, right? Not just an average.
Precisely. It gives a truer picture of long-term growth, accounting for volatility. When you compare Kelly to other systems, fixed wager, bet it all, Martingale Kelly stands out. Fixed wager, slow climb, still risk of ruin. Bet it all, works until you lose once, then bust. Martingale. Looks good initially, but catastrophic losses escalate rapidly. Steady, optimal long-term growth by betting a proportion of your bankroll. It adapts to your current wealth, never risking everything. It safeguards against ruin while maximizing growth.
This theoretical edge needed a real-world test. Enter Ed Thorpe again, collaborating with Shannon from 1960-1961 on a device to predict roulette outcomes.
Right. Shannon, with characteristic enthusiasm and Bell Labs funding, bought a reconditioned roulette wheel from Reno for $1,500. They were just thinking they were building.
They filled it with a strobe light, timed it meticulously, and Thorpe had this ESP moment.
He discovered, astonishingly, he could guess approximately where the ball would land. The reason? The wheel was slightly tilted, causing the ball to favor the downhill side consistently.
They didn't need an exact number, just narrowing it down.
Just narrowing it to roughly half the wheel provided a massive, practically unbeatable advantage, an estimated 44% edge.
Incredible. And the device itself, concealed, using musical tones.
A marvel of ingenuity. Concealed, perhaps in a shoe. It assigned a musical tone to each wheel, octant, 5-number segments, communicated via a tiny concealed earphone. Thorpe mentally ticked off notes like do re mi, that the device played notes while computing, then stopped on the last note, signaling the octant to bet on.
But they realized it was fragile in a real casino.
Exactly. Management could simply refuse bets after the ball was thrown if they suspected anything or ban them. The real world had limitations. Theory didn't.
Thorpe also mastered card counting and blackjack, learned about Joe Bernstein's $75,000 win at the Sahara.
Yes. Thorpe even met Harold S. Smith, Sr. of Harold's Club in Reno, a colorful character who once pulled a loaded .38 on mobsters trying to muscle in. His son, Harold Jr., had a gambling addiction, leading to a strange stock deal to prevent him gambling away shares that later became worth $8 million. A wild world.
Thorpe even partnered, briefly and uncomfortably, with Manny Kimmel in blackjack.
He did. But Kimmel proved a liability. Lack of focus cost them $11,000. Highlights how even with a perfect edge, human error and discipline matter immensely.
And casinos adapted quickly against counters like Thorpe, shuffling when bets changed.
Immediately. A change in bet size signaled a counting player. Shows how adaptable casinos were, how information, even subtle cues, was acted upon, a constant arms race.
After his success, Thorpe published Beat the Dealer. Mentioned backers Mr. X and Mr. Y, Kimmel in hand, and an unnamed famous scientist, Shannon.
Right. Kimmel, with his huge ego, later claimed to be the mastermind but dismissed the book as a pamphlet. The whole counting scene took on a James Bond flavor, young, serious counters versus casino surveillance.
Thorpe's success with blackjack naturally led him to a bigger frontier, the stock market.
And the idea you could beat the market was highly contentious. The dominant academic view for decades was impossible. But our pioneers, armed with new formulas, disagreed. Paul Samuelson, a Nobel-winning MIT economist, championed the efficient market hypothesis. His own early failure to get rich from warrants, despite using tip services, led him to conclude, if tips were truly good, they'd cost more. Why sell true value cheap?
This skepticism was reinforced by rediscovering Louis Bachelier's 1900 thesis, arguing stock prices are random.
Yes. Bachelier's core argument. If price reflects all known info, future changes must be unpredictable. The mathematical expectation of the speculator is zero. Samuelson refined this, noting prices can't go below zero, so they follow a geometric random walk.
So if prices move randomly, what did that imply for investors?
To Samuelson, the market was a glorified casino. Fortunes from luck, not skill. Might as well throw darts at the financial pages. The efficient market hypothesis, developed by Eugene Fama, posits no one can consistently achieve better than average risk-adjusted returns through skill. It's just luck.
But what does that not mean? People still make money long term, right?
Correct. Doesn't mean no one makes money or no one beats indexes for a few years. It means no sustained, market-beating, risk-adjusted return via a logical, repeatable system using public info. Fama's strong four even suggested you couldn't beat it with insider info, often refuted by real-world prosecutions.
This view was so strong, it was called the random walk Cosa Nostra at MIT, stifling dissent.
Some critics felt so. MIT's Robert Fenno had his paper on predictable stock cycles dismissed as crackpot simply because it challenged the orthodoxy. Shows how powerful ideas can sometimes block alternatives.
Okay, so if the market's so efficient, how did Shannon and Thorpe find an edge?
Claude Shannon's view. Making money is primarily through arbitrage. Historically, that meant exploiting price differences between remote markets. Think Jay Gould and gold.
But modern arbitrage is different. Instant communication changes things.
Exactly. Modern arbitrage is about finding tiny, fleeting inefficiencies or irrationalities in nearly efficient markets, buying and selling nearly the same thing simultaneously to lock in a risk-free profit before the market corrects. While no arbitrage is a foundational assumption in finance theory, these opportunities do exist temporarily, hence the economist joke. See a $100 bill? Nah, someone would have picked it up already. Captures the efficient market view perfectly.
And Shannon himself had investment success, not just theory.
Significant success. Bought Harrison Laboratories stock in '54, a Bell Lab scientists company. Acquired by HP in '62, stock zoomed. This paper profit convinced him real money could be made. He also invested in Teledyne Motorola, achieving remarkable 29% annual returns over decades. He even built a stock market timing device mimicking money flow to predict turns, warning a grad student off stocks in '63 or '64.
So Shannon saw the market not as efficient, but as a fast-paced and vicious stock market, like a horse race.
Exactly, where an informational edge could lead to superior returns, directly challenging the academic consensus. He was effectively arbitraging noise.
And Ed Thorpe applied his blackjack expertise to the market too. Founded Convertible Hedge Associates,
One of the first quantitative hedge funds, specialized in convertible bonds with a stock option bonus. By 1967, Thorpe had independently developed a version of the Black-Scholes options pricing formulas years before they published.
using a primitive computer by today's standards.
An HP 9830A cost $6,000, had just 7,616 bytes of memory. On this, he programmed and compared his formulas to Black-Scholes, finding they were essentially the same. The Wall Street Journal reported on his quantitative mechanistic approach in '74, noting his machine outperformed most mutual funds. Radical stuff, then. Signaled the dawn of algorithm-driven finance.
Incredible.
Yeah.
But as these quant approaches gained traction, they drew government attention. The worlds of high finance and organized crime intersect again.
Right. Let's look at Manny Kimmel's legacy. He owned Kinney System Parking. Despite trying to go straight, mob ties persisted like a foreman breaking a car thief's arms and legs. Kinney merged with Riverside Memorial Chapel, bringing in Steve Ross, a natural gambler who read Beat the Dealer and learned card counting from Kimmel.
Ross built Kinney into a conglomerate DC Comics Manny magazine, trying to avoid corrupt businesses.
Deliberately. But rumors of mob connections clung, even with Kimmel's son denying his father ever owned the parking company.
This complex web brings us to Ivan Beresky, the risk arbitrage guy.
Notorious figure, famously advertised for investors in the Wall Street Journal, touting fantastic profits, highly unusual, his fee structure, 45% of profits, but past 95% of losses to investors. Heavily biased.
Nicknamed Piggy for his appetite for leverage and risk.
Right. He nearly went bust on city service stock when a merger fell through, despite having insider tips. Shows even illicit info isn't foolproof. His key informant was Martin Siegel, an investment banker. Boteski paid him large cash sums for tips, money tied with Caesar's Palace ribbons, a nod to their illicit partnership.
And this leads us to Rudolph Giuliani, U.S. Attorney for Southern District of New York. He had personal connections to this world.
Surprisingly, yes. Uncle was a mob bookie loan shark. Father was an enforcer known for using a baseball bat, likely fueled his aggressive pursuit of organized crime. He dramatically expanded using the RICO Act, originally for rackets, against mob leaders, then controversially against legitimate businesses with alleged mob ties.
Like Warner Communications, parent of Kinney Parking, because of its prehistory and crime family connections.
Exactly. Due to its past as a racket and links to Colombo, Gambino, Genovese families. Steve Ross's alleged gambling habits likely fueled Giuliani's suspicions too. His arrests were highly publicized, marking a new era of white-collar prosecution.
Then, shockingly, Ed Thorpe's fund, Princeton Newport, became a target.
A direct target. A former employee, William Hale, alleged widespread stock parking with Michael Milken's junk bond operation.
Explain stock parking again. It's about taxes.
Essentially, yes. A pretend sale to convert long-term capital losses, which didn't fully offset short-term gains, into short-term losses, reduced the fund's tax liability, considered illegal tax evasion by many. Hale's supervisor, Paul Berkman, initially downplayed it, saying the IRS didn't have the manpower, instructed Hale to camouflage trades by slightly varying buyback prices.
And the raid was dramatic. Federal agents, bulletproof vests.
Highly theatrical. Around 50 agents from FBI, Treasury, ATF descended on their offices, seizing documents, looking for tapes. Lisa Jones, a Drexel employee involved, initially denied it, then changed her story when she realized the trouble she was in, cooperating with prosecutors.
And they had tapes.
They did. Tapes of Princeton Newport employees discussing parking. One famously said, "Welcome to the world of sleaze." Ultimately, James Reagan, Thorpe's partner, was convicted on ISACO charges. Sentenced to 6 months, fined $325,000. The judge believed he lied.
A stark reminder even brilliant minds can fall foul of the law. So what does this mean for those sophisticated sure-thing strategies? This leads to LTCM.
Directly to the spectacular collapse of long-term capital management. Founded by John Merriweather, recruited Nobel laureates Robert Merton and Myron Scholes. Promised unprecedented returns through science and software using extreme leverage.
Their strategy: exploit tiny mispricings in nearly efficient markets, multiply profits through massive leverage.
Exactly. Finding fleeting arbitrage opportunities the efficient market hypothesis said didn't exist. Leveraging up sometimes 25 to 1 against equity, Scholes pitched it as vacuuming up nickels no one else could see.
But the problem was underestimating fat tails.
Catastrophically, traditional models assume a neat bell curve, making extreme events seem incredibly rare. But fat tails mean those extreme catastrophic events happen far more often in the real world.
Like assuming a massive earthquake is once in a century, but it happens yearly.
Precisely. Mark Rubenstein calculated the chance of a Black Monday crash, 29% drop, was 1 in 10/160, statistically absurd. Yet, they happen. Even Merton acknowledged flea-like jumps, but their models largely ignored them.
So the core issue wasn't just fat tails or leverage, but something more fundamental.
Yeah.
Overbetting, a gambling concept.
Absolutely. Overbetting is always bad, guarantees long-term ruin, no matter the edge. Jared Wilcox linked it to Enron, the dot-com bust, the '87 crash. Thorpe blamed Merton and Scholes' lack of practical understanding of extreme risk, concepts controlled by the Kelly system.
Their theoretical brilliance lacked practical risk management wisdom.
And LTCM disastrously underestimated the correlation of its bets. They thought they had hundreds of uncorrelated bets, but then Russia defaulted in '98, triggering a global crisis. Suddenly, those bets became highly correlated, all moving against them at once. A lot was riding on the same losing hand.
Warren Buffett marveled how guys with IQs of 170 could lose everything, echoing Bernoulli's warning from 1738. A man who risks his entire fortune acts like a simpleton.
Right. The survival motive of Kelly betting is key. Never bet the entire bankroll. Adjust proportionally, takes an insurance policy against ruin. William Zimba estimated LTCM's leverage was twice the optimal Kelly level. Their true compound growth rate was near zero, making ruin almost inevitable.
A sobering conclusion. Unlikely events must happen eventually. Accept small risks of losing everything, and you will lose everything. Like John Kuhnman's Ifuku Master Trust failed due to overbetting.
Another one. Lost 40% in a day, shrunk to 3%. Ifuku means eternal luck. Grim irony. Visualizing the Kelly gambler's wealth path, a jagged mountain range. Chance of dipping to 1 of your bankroll is 1N. Wild swings.
A landscape of potential heartbreak. You could hit your first million, then lose most of it. But Thornton's fund, Princeton Newport, achieved smooth exponential growth. How?
Crucial nuance. Through diversification, fractional Kelly position sizes, betting less than full Kelly, more conservative, and a cautious philosophy. Avoided the severe volatility of the theoretical full Kelly gambler, tamed the mountain range.
And the Kelly criterion is now used in places like Hong Kong horse racing. Syndicates use complex models.
It's become almost orthodoxy there. Sophisticated syndicates use complex models, fractional Kelly systems. William Benter's syndicate used 130 variables, analyzed race videos meticulously, made hundreds of millions exploiting market inefficiencies systematically.
Proving an edge plus disciplined money management can lead to extraordinary success, yet it's still considered fringe in academia, not taught in most MBA programs.
Surprisingly, yes. Despite practitioners like Bill Miller and Warren Buffett, arguably a crypto Kelly trader, using its principles, this whole journey, from illicit telegraphs to complex algorithms, reveals that constant thread, the relentless pursuit of an edge, and the math defining its potential and perils.
So after this incredible journey, gambling underworld, cutting-edge science, high finance store, what does this all mean for you, the listener?
Well, whether you're making a simple bet or navigating complex investments, understanding Kelly principles, the nature of information, the pitfalls of overbetting, it's crucial. It's not just finding an edge. It's managing risk, knowing improbable events will happen. It's about resilience.
You've seen how the quest for winning illicitly or through innovation pushed technology and math forward. This deep dive shows the line between aggressive and insane investing is often invisible. Grasping these concepts gives you a compass for that terrain.
Exactly. It encourages critical thinking about what information truly is, how it's valued, how it's exploited or misused, from racetracks to global markets. It's about being prepared for the unexpected, respecting the odds even when they seem favorable.
A final thought for you to mull over. If you knew a system could virtually guarantee long-term wealth, could compound capital consistently, but came with the certainty of sharp, gut-wrenching downturns along the way, would you have the discipline, the mental fortitude to follow it? And how much would you truly bet on the idea that eternal luck is more than just a name for a failed hedge fund? That's all for this deep dive. We hope you feel a little more informed, a little more curious, and a lot more ready to see the hidden formulas that shape our world. Until next time, keep digging.